Howdy folks, and welcome to the shop here at Homegrown Strings. I saw a post on Facebook last week and somebody was asking about how to get the bend out of a neck or the bow out of a neck. And when I'm building a cigar box guitar neck, I address that at the very beginning of the neck shaping process before I cut the scarf joint. And regardless of what grade of wood you use or type of wood you use, there's going to be a natural tendency for the wood to bow one way or the other. There's a lot of things that affect it, such as the area of the tree that the wood was cut from, how it was sawn, and also humidity changes. So when I am grading wood to build necks from, I try to find pieces that are as straight as I possibly can, and cut the straightest section out of a board. When I'm ready to cut the scarf joint, what I'll do is sight down the board and I try to find the natural bow. So what I'm looking for is a neck that's bowed more this way than that way. If it's bowed this way, it's more difficult to get that bow out, for one thing. And another thing, when the guitar is being played and it's in an uncontrolled environment, right around the back of the car and that sort of thing, its natural tendency is to want to find that bow again. So as the humidity changes, it'll actually move a little bit. But if your wood has a natural bow like this in the neck, then as you and I'm really exaggerating that, I'm talking about a few thousandths of an inch bow, you'll have much less possibility of fret buzz as you're fretting notes up the of the neck. So I try to have the natural bow of my neck go that way rather than going that way. That's the first step. If you've got a little more bow in the neck than you want, and this neck is actually pretty dead on. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's primarily the easiest way to find out if you've got a bow in the neck. Lay a straight edge up against it and hold it up against a light source, and if you can see, if there's a gap, you're going to see light passing between the neck and the straight edge. So this is a relatively straight neck. But if it had more of a bow in it than what I wanted to use, I would try and get the majority of it out and get it as flat as I possibly could. Now I know when I do this that even though if I got the neck perfectly flat now, in dramatic changes in humidity and temperature and that sort of thing, this neck may move. It may just move naturally over time. But if you keep it as flat as you can, you'll have less problems down the road. The way I do this, there's several ways you could do it. You could actually run it through what's called a joiner, which is, it can be a very useful tool if it's set up properly, but in most small shops, people use it more as a planer than a joiner, and for a joiner to be accurate, the geometry of the two beds is just really critical. So I'd recommend for the small shop to go with a process similar to what I'm using. This is an aluminum C-channel that was actually a leftover piece from a construction job that I did back when I was in the construction business. And it's a heavy gauge aluminum. You could use a piece of steel angle iron or anything that's solid and really straight. And once you start using this, you don't want to use it. Once you start using this for guitars, you don't want to use it for anything else. You want to store it in a safe place so that something doesn't buff up against it and bend it or that sort of thing. You want it to remain perfectly straight and flat. What I did with this piece of aluminum C-channel is I actually used a spray adhesive, and I used Super 77 spray adhesive that's available at most hardware or home improvement centers. And this surface of the I-beam has a sanding belt that's a It's actually a 6-inch by 48-inch sanding belt that you can get at some of the bigger tool supply stores or home improvement centers. And all I did was just cut it so that it wasn't a continuous belt anymore. It was just a long strip of sandpaper. Sprayed it with Super 77 adhesive and adhered it to this aluminum C-channel. And on this side, I've actually taken 2 pieces of sandpaper that I got from an automotive supply store, you know, like a CarQuest or something like that, AutoZone, and it's a sticky back paper, so you just peel the back off and stick that on. So I've got 2 different grit surfaces. This one is really pretty coarse, and this one is a little bit finer. But if I wanted to get a slight bow out of this neck right here, and of course you'll notice I've got a perfectly flat surface right here. Depending on how you build your necks, you may have to do this at a different period of the process to accommodate the neck. But my neck will lay perfectly flat on that, and if there was a bow on it, I could just work this back and forth and get that bow out, get it perfectly flat. One of the things you want to be careful about when you're doing this is the amount of pressure that you put on this board. If you push really hard here and here, you're actually going to take more material out where the pressure points are. So you don't want to use heavy hand pressure. You just want that friction to do the work. And we're not talking about removing a lot of wood either. We're talking about removing minute amounts of wood. One of the ways to tell whether your neck is getting where you want it to be or not is to take a pencil and actually scribble down the neck. And as you're going through this process, the high spots that are touching the sandpaper first, the pencil mark will be erased. And so as you see the pencil mark being erased from that, you know, you'll realize that, well, that was a high spot and it's starting to go down now. And I'm getting pretty much an even, there was one little high spot right there, but I'm getting a pretty much even erasing of that pencil mark there. So you just keep doing that until you get the neck down to where you want this neck to be. And it's a pretty effective process and pretty inexpensive too. You know, you can get a piece of scrap metal somewhere and put one of these together for just a few dollars. Another thing that you could use it for that I have not used it for, but I would if I did, I'd probably set one of these up specifically for this, and that would be for leveling frets. You know, if you've got a perfectly flat piece of metal and you put a real fine piece of emery paper, glue a real fine piece of emery paper on here, you could actually take you know, a neck with a fretboard attached and do this same process to kind of level out some frets. But I use this pretty much to take care of any high spots on the neck that I might have. And it's having something like this is great. You can see right here I've actually used it to sand down a bone saddle or a bone nut, and so having a piece of sandpaper attached to a flat surface is really good for working a lot of small details, and a big long one like this is great for the neck. Anyway, I hope you've found this tip handy, and hope to see you soon.